Michelle Trujillo is an author, an inspirational speaker, and an educational consultant. As a Nevada local, she has spent 25 years as an educator and building principal in Douglas County School District. Most recently, Michelle has joined the Office of Safe and Respectful Learning at the Nevada Department of Education, where she helps to promote social and emotional learning in schools. Michelle and I have had the pleasure to work together for several years now, and her ideas and enthusiasm are infectious. Her new book, being released in March, is titled Start with the Heart: Igniting Hope in Schools through Social and Emotional Learning. Please help me to welcome my dear friend and colleague, Michelle Trujillo.
Hello, all. We have dwindled since lunch. Have you noticed? Look around you. That's why I said, come on up, because this is a long day. And you guys have learned so much information that your brain is probably exploding a little bit. So I am so grateful that you are still here. But I also know that when we have all of this good stuff in our brain, sometimes it's invigorating, but it's also exhausting, right? So we got to start with a little bit of rejuvenation. Are you feeling the need?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so here's the deal. I'm going to play a little music. When I play that music, I want you to stand up. Now, we don't have to do the footloose thing. Don't get nervous. But I want you to stand up and look around the room and try to connect with as many people that you can that you don't yet know, okay? I want you to reach out, shake their hand, say hello. My name's Mickey, and you are?
Jody.
Hi, Jody. And then move on to somebody else, okay? You got it? Is that easy? All right. Mom, please don't do that. She's 25. You are not allowed to dance in public. Okay? But I mean, Jody was doing Footloose. Jody, where are you? It's the best thing ever, and she has all this rhythm, and I'm like, woo! But when I feel good, I can't help myself. And it feels good to be in a room full of people that are excited about what they do and why they do it, right? It's a good thing. When we feel good, I always think of, do you guys remember? Now, this is going to date me a little bit, but there's one more thing I want to do to rejuvenate. In high school, okay, football game, the drum major steps up on his platform, right? Does anybody remember this? Do you know where I'm going? And he says, at my high school, Douglas Tigers, how do you, yeah, whoop, whoop, Douglas Tigers, how do you feel? And all of the fans say, oh, you know it. Okay, I want to do it. Okay? All of us with conviction. You got to give me all your love. You ready? Get ready. Amazing human beings. How do you feel? We feel good. Yeah, you got to do the part. Okay, I need a little more love. I know you can do it. Human beings, how do you feel? We feel good. Oh, we feel so good. That's beautiful. I'll try and get down safely. All right. Thank you, Jez. I want you to notice something right now. How does your body feel? How does your heart feel? Okay? Science tells us this, that just that act of shaking hands, of making physical contact, it releases oxytocin, which makes us feel good. And then you add looking at someone's eyes, smiling with your heart through your eyes, and we get a release of serotonin and dopamine. Not to mention doing that positive activity together, everybody together saying, we feel good. Oh, we feel so good. Sean Anker says when we think positively, we are more likely to be positive, more effective, more productive, and more focused. Wouldn't it be awesome if we started every single day with our kids that way? Like if we really know the evidence says you're more productive, more effective, and more focused, we've got to connect. So I started our session today like this because I wanted to practice a little bit of what I'm going to be talking about. So let me tell you, here's my expected outcomes, okay? It is my hope that you will leave here today with a clearer understanding of your role in positively affecting your school climate, knowing that climate starts with the heart, not just yours, your colleagues and your students. I want you understanding that a successful MTSS framework, PBIS framework, is only as effective as the human mindset that implements it. I want that to marinate for a minute. Okay? And what this really means is it comes down to how we be. Okay, I know I'm in a room of educators, and that does not sound right, right? How we be. But my verbiage is intentional. Being. It's a state or way of being. How we be with other human beings matters. Our every word and thought and action matters. Say that with me. Our words, thoughts, and actions matter. Our words, thoughts, and actions matter. They matter. So we need to understand that in everything that we do, okay? And finally, when you leave here, I want you to leave here ready to live out being connected and and restorative and empathetic. Now, I know these things, they're not complicated and they're not things you don't already do or already know. But as educators, with so much on our plates, sometimes we need reminders. So that's what I'm here to be today. This is another word I love. I think I made it up, I'm not sure. I'm a reminder-er. Okay, I'm a reminder-er. I come to you from a variety of perspectives. I've been a teacher, I've been a principal, I'm an author, and an educational consultant, and I've loved everything that I've done. But I know that so often in education, we get caught up in all of the doing, and sometimes we forget about the being. So I really want you to think about that. Here's the other thing we get caught up in. All of this. Okay? Now please, don't hear me say that high expectations academically are a bad thing. They're an amazing thing. The high school principal in me knows how important high expectations are. I know that we've got to value measurable outcomes, using best practices for our instruction, quality assessment. Those things are all important. I also know how important it is to really do the best that we can do to help our kids to achieve, because our schools are measured on that achievement, right? But sometimes we get lost in it. And I'm going to shout to anybody that'll listen that we're going to be really challenged to reach this with our kids, to help them to achieve academically to their greatest potential until we reach this. We've got to start with the heart of all of our kids. And to do that, we need a human mindset. We hear so much about a growth mindset. And in some ways, a human mindset is a growth mindset. These are things we all know, but we have to remember to foster this mindset in ourselves every day. I want you to think about, as I go over these things, what if every educator in your building, your place of employment, what if every educator had a human mindset? A human mindset acknowledges that all of our kids are all of our kids. Since 2002, when No Child Left Behind was implemented, what did we end up doing? No Child Left Behind. We left so many of our kids behind. Well, all of our kids are all of our kids. Not just the kids that come in and sit down in class all ready to learn, right? They've got their pencil, they've got their paper, they've got their homework. Not just the kids that don't get sent to the principal's office, or that don't spend all the time with the counselor or the social worker, but all of our kids are all of our kids. So we don't just look at and see those kids as teachers that come into our classroom, or as counselors and social workers that we work with on a regular basis. All of us need to see every kid that walks in the door of our school for who they are. Kids are begging to be seen and heard. A human mindset also says the deed is not the doer. Because a human mindset acknowledges that there is a child behind every test score and a human being behind every behavior. And when you think about that, I'm not just talking about our students. Think about your colleagues. We all have that one person that drives us a little bit crazy, right? That person is a human being too. Our parents, they're human beings. We may not understand their behaviors. A human mindset says this: our students need more than to be safe. They must also feel safe. One of the blessings that I have working for the Office for a Safe and Respectful Learning Environment is that I get to look at every school climate survey that every school that participates takes in the state of Nevada. And one of the things that we see is we see students saying, when I go to school, I know I'm physically safe. I know school's doing what they need to be doing to keep me safe. But on those surveys, what we see is kids say, I need support emotionally. I don't feel emotionally safe. How can we better support them? So to really foster this human mindset, we've got to ask ourselves some questions. And the first question comes from the wonderful David Osher. I know this table knows. I don't know if you guys know his name. If you don't, you've got to get to know him. He is a research guru and a champion for children, right? He says this. He says educators need to ask themselves, are our students thriving or simply surviving? We want our students to thrive. We also need to ask this: what are our students carrying in their invisible backpacks? Because every kid has one. Actually, all of our colleagues have them too. What are they walking in the door with? I mean, I want you to imagine this. Kind of look at this picture. What if, when Johnny, who's often late, first period, walking in late, what if he walks into class and Mr. Smith looks at him and goes, I hope there's not a Mr. Smith in here, sorry. Mr. Smith looks at him and goes, Johnny, seriously? You're late again? Why do you even bother coming? But it happens. And so what if Johnny said, Mr. Smith, I know, I'm sorry, but would you mind helping me with my bags? Homelessness, sickness, hunger, lack of transportation, responsibility for younger kids at home, working until 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at night the night before. What are they carrying in? To have a human mindset, we've got to continue to ask ourselves those questions. And then we've got to ask this. In all that, what's within our control? Because so often we let ourselves spend our time and energy on what's out of our control. We talk about, I can't tell you how many meetings I sat in on as a teacher where somebody said, oh, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? We've all heard it in education. Well, you know what? Parents have those backpacks too. We don't necessarily know their stories either. And that's not within our control, but what's within our control is how we show up every day for our kids, how we be for our kids. That's within our control. Now, there are things we can do. We know that. But what's truly in our control is how we choose to show up. We also need to ask ourselves this. What do we want to grow in our students? And are our current instructional practices or classroom management techniques growing it, getting us there, doing the job? I want to go back to Kent's slide, if you remember, and the concept of ditching the clip. I actually, when he put that up, I asked the group behind me, and I don't know if they're still here, but I asked them, do they still do this at your school? And the person I asked said, some teachers, yeah, still happens. Well, here's the deal. What are we trying to grow with the clip? We're trying to grow responsibility, right? We want kids to be aware of their behavior, and we want them to not want to move down move their clippy down, right? But what happens? Johnny has to move his clip down on Monday. And then who moves it on Tuesday? Oh, it's Johnny again. Or Johnny and Sam. And then on Wednesday, it's Sam again. The same kids every day tend to be the kids that have to move their clip down. So are we growing what we're trying to grow? We have to ask ourselves that question, use the evidence that's around us, and if it is not working, we got to stop doing it. What do we want to grow? And then finally, I don't know if you can see my bottom question, but how do we see our students? All of them. We've got to ask ourselves, do we see them as the children that they are? Like this child. Right? Look at this picture. This is my 2-week-old nephew. This picture to me says pure joy. And a little bit of gas, because 2-week-old babies, they don't smile like that, right? You know. But pure joy. When we see babies, we get all squishy inside, right? I mean, watching your baby eat guacamole the other day, I was like, this is the best thing ever. Seriously. I was at a Boulder, Colorado football game, and this woman in front of me, any Buff fans in here? No? Okay, well, there were a lot of Buff fans there, I'm telling you. And this woman, going into the bathroom, had a 1-week-old little boy, all decked out in Buff gear, right? And going in the bathroom, you know, there's always the lines and the little changing things right there. And as soon as I see this baby, like my heart melts. I'm just exuding love, you know? Like I want to touch him, and he's not my baby. And every single person that walks in the bathroom is like, oh. And then this one lady comes in. I'm almost to the front of the line, but I'm telling you, this was the best thing in the world. She had had a few adult beverages, I think. Okay, so she walks in all enthusiastic and really needing to use the restroom, but she sees the baby. And she stops, and she does the same thing the rest of us did. Oh, and then she goes, where are you sitting, Mama? And the woman's kind of like, what? And she goes, because I got your back. Nobody's going to mess with that baby. I'm serious! I mean, she wasn't even going to use the bathroom at that point. She was going to follow this woman around. See, when we see babies, when we interact with babies, it inspires this response in us to be kind, to care, to love, to connect, to defend, to protect. And this child too. Don't you love this picture? This is my godchild. I know I'm biased. She's 2 years old, right? But even in the terrible twos, we are prone to see the best in our kids. This is Maddie. She's so cute, and that's her baby, okay? She loves her baby. She got to go to Target and pick out her baby, and she just loves this baby. This baby goes everywhere with her. And shortly after she got her baby, a woman saw she and her mom and said to Maddie, kind of leaned down, and for a 2-year-old, she has a pretty good vocabulary, leaned down and said, "What's your baby's name?" And she kind of squeezes her baby, and she goes, "Have a name." Have a name. And the lady said, "What was that?" "No, have a name." And then mom goes, "Baby, no have a name." Right? And the woman goes, "What an amazing name for a baby." Baby, no have a name. Great name for a baby. That woman could have said, "Well, that's no name for a baby." Right? But when kids are toddlers, we encourage creativity. Yeah? And when kids are toddlers and we have to discipline them, what do? We teach and we reteach even if we have to discipline. Because 2-year-olds need discipline. They might need a timeout. They might even, dare I say the word, need a spanking. Sometimes, maybe, depending upon your parental views. But there are consequences that may be required based on your parenting style. But when we do it with love and encouragement and teaching and reteaching the behaviors we want to see. So 2-year-olds, Alyssa and us, laughter and love and desire to encourage and connect, protect, and teach, right? But what about this kid? Right? This child. What is the difference between this child and that newborn that exudes in us this gushiness and the 2-year-old that makes us laugh at the littlest things? Well, this child, often in the hustle and hurry and the doing of our worlds that are overwhelming, we're getting stressed out. This child often becomes that kid, right? Oh, I got that kid in my 3rd period class. I don't know if I can handle it today. Or that unreachable kid or unteachable kid. That kid drives me crazy. That special ed kid, we start to label. And you know what I've been hearing? We've been doing such a great job teaching tiers, like tiered intervention, which is an amazing, wonderful thing. But we have to be cognizant of this. I've heard people say, "Well, we don't have to worry about that student. That student's only tier 1. But that tier 3 kid, right? We have to remind people to lose the adjectives, right? They are all children. This child is Cisco, who often felt going up through school that he was that kid. And I want to read, he wrote this spoken word piece, and I'm going to read the beginning to you. This is his heart and his mind, what came out in a spoken word piece about who he was as that kid. I'm going to try and do him justice. Here's what Cisco had to say in the beginning of this spoken word piece. He said, "School wasn't for me. I didn't respond well to authority and never treated it like a priority. So I spent the majority of my teenage stage engulfed in rage, From a young age, I was labeled a troubled kid for the mistakes I made, all the dumb things I did since the 2nd grade. I was brought up in Sacramento County. Thought I was mad tough. Yeah. Fought anyone who talked too much about me. I've been suspended 20-something times and expelled twice. Lord knows I've struggled and tried to walk the straight line. The Lord also knows I've stolen, lied, and threw up gang signs. When I moved to Douglas, guess I couldn't help but start a ruckus. Got expelled from middle school for carrying a substance. That kid, when he read this for the first time I heard him, he did it with a little bit of swagger, a little bit of pride. Like, yeah, that's me, mad tough, right? That kid, how do we see that kid? As the children that they are, we've got to meet them right where they are. See, the kids that we tend to have difficulty building relationships with, the kids who tend to be like our biggest offenders of disruption and disrespect and discipline issues, they tend to be the kids that are living in the reality of adversity. Okay, those kids come in acting tough, rebellious, right? Like they don't care. Well, Eric Jensen says this. He says behavior that comes off as apathetic or rude may actually indicate feelings of hopelessness and despair. Okay, I'm going to read it again, and I want you to close it with me. I'm going to read the first part. Behavior that comes off as apathetic or rude may actually indicate feelings of hopelessness and despair. We see this in our kids. So we've got to try to get under that facade. Find out what they're feeling and thinking and why. Because if we're persistent and we're accepting, we're going to connect with the hearts of our kids. And when we do that, it'll set up a foundation for us to be able to implement our initiatives through an MTSS, PBIS framework. We know this framework works. We've seen it. We saw data all day. When we connect with their hearts, we can boost it even more. And that's something all of us can do. It helps to start with the why. We know the why is important, right, for us as professionals. I hope you all have read the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. It's amazing. Write it down if you haven't read it. Okay? But we know that when we understand the why for what we do, we have more meaning and purpose in our lives. Those of you that have heard me speak before have heard me speak about my sister Kelly. She's there in the middle. She passed away when she was 11 years old from a liver disease. And I would love to have time to tell you her story, so you got to come to another session at another time. Because she inspires everything that I have done over the last 30 years fighting for kids that are up against all odds. Because she fought herself. She's my why. I'm sure that you all have a why as well. We got to also ask the question about our kids, though. Why did they do what they do? Because when we ask that question, we might be able to help them figure out their meaning and their purpose. What is their why? And what will help is if we add to our human mindset a love mindset. Okay? So I want you to consider this. We all have been taught and we believe in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? All you behaviorists and such in this room. You get it, you know it, you live it, right? You teach it. Maslow said people need to be safe physically. They need to have their physiological needs met. Well, for a lot of our students, at least a lot of my students that I dealt with in the world of alternative education, school, was the one place they knew they had a roof over their head and meals in their belly. Right? They got there early for breakfast. We had snacks, granola bars throughout the day. They had lunch. They took a bag home on the weekend. Right? School provided those needs. So in school, what do we need to start with? Foundation of love. If we as educators, social workers, counselors, teachers, we're all educators, principals. If we come from a place of love, we're going to help our kids to get there to self-actualization or success academically and personally. We're going to give them the tools and the encouragement, the support with empathy and connection. I want you to see it through this lens too, because when I first started learning about PBIS, and I've heard a lot of talk about it today, that understanding that it's not just levels, like you end with one and then you go to the next. So I love this picture with the tier 1 all the way around, right? But here's what I say, love permeates all of it and sets it up for success. A love mindset that helps us to be connected, empathetic, and restorative creates a foundation for intervention at the appropriate level for any initiative. Think about that. So let's talk about being connected, empathetic, and restorative. Being connected. It's a way of being that we can all be, choose to be every day. I got 7 keys to connection that I want to talk to you about. The first 4 go together. Stop, look, ask, and listen. Okay, I don't know if you've figured this out about me yet or not, but I have a lot of energy, right? So like my husband has this thing that he says, and I was mad when he first said it. I was like, what are you talking about? He said, honey, you've got to close your tabs. I'm like, close your tabs? What are you talking about? And he goes, you're like that computer with like 30 tabs open. You got to shut them down. And it's true. How many of us live that way, right? And it wasn't until I got really sick a couple years ago, and I was going through some kind of intensive treatment that just knocked me on my rear. And I was down and out, and it gave me a lot of reflection time. It was actually a blessing for me. And here's what I realized. I kind of had an epiphany, because I was out of school, and I was thinking about my kids all the time. And I was thinking, I can have all the energy and enthusiasm in the world, but if I don't stop long enough to look a kid in the eyes, to ask, how are you, and really listen for the answer, then my enthusiasm and energy, it means nothing. I mean, kids will walk in the door, and they'd say, T, I got a question. And I'd go, walk with me, I got an answer. Seriously, and we walk down the hall, we talk it out. But while I was doing that, was I thinking about other things? I was on the go. We all do it every day. What do? We're walking down the hall, we see a colleague, we say, hi, how are you? We don't care! Like we do, but we don't take time to say, how are you? When we stop and look a kid in the eye, or a colleague, and say, how are you? And listen to the answer, then the next day, that kid, when we see him, we can say, hey, how's your dad doing? I know yesterday you were worried about him. How's he doing? And we start building relationship. Stop, look, ask, and listen. Key 5, smile authentically. The Dalai Lama says smiling is an essential part of daily living. Because see, when we smile with our heart, authentically, it comes out through our eyes. And I'm looking at you. Okay, so here's the deal. Sean Aker in his book talks about a test. I don't know if any of you have done it. We don't have time. But you A-B partner. Okay, I'm just going to tell you so you can do it. You got to go do it with people. A-B partner. Okay, A partners, their instruction is no response. you may not respond. You put their partners across from them, and their job is to smile with their heart and look directly into a person's eyes. 98% of those people that were not supposed to do anything, they can't help themselves. They smile. And that 2%, they're just highly competitive. They wanted to smile, but they're like, you're not getting me. Like, see, you probably wouldn't do it. They're not getting me. But they wanted to, because it's contagious. We got to spread our joy and share our joy. In doing so, we're going to connect with kids. Okay, this is a big one. Key 6. I encourage people to connect kinesthetically. There is a way to appropriately, kinesthetically, hey, I'm so glad to see you today, kinesthetically connect with kids every single day. There is nothing that keeps teachers from standing at their door except for about 5 minutes of preparation. So can't they do that preparation at a different time? Because I'll tell you this, they'll accomplish a lot more in class if they spend that 5 minutes at the door as kids come in. Class will be more productive. We've got to kinesthetically connect, but we also have to keep in mind this. There are some kids, because of culture or because of past experience, touching is not okay. They're not comfortable. So what do? We connect with something they're connected to. Hey, so glad you're here today. It shows them that connection with them is important to us. And finally, we must believe intentionally in our kids. Because you know what? There are so many of them. They don't believe in themselves. My staff and I used to tell our kids when they would say, you don't understand, I can't do it. You just don't get it. It's not possible. And we would say, we believe you can. You grab onto our beliefs until you get there too. Right? We believe you can. Grab onto what we have for you. I will never forget Michaela. She came to me her senior year. She was told by the high school the only way to graduate is to go to alternative ed. We don't even know if it's possible. She had been homeless for over a year before. She was up against all odds. She felt very, she had lost all of her confidence. She was floundering when she came to us. And through that entire year, we just watched her blossom. And not only did she earn the credits that she needed to make up, she earned all of her credits for that year. And by the end, she had the highest GPA, and she had done the most service, which we counted as part of our valedictorian, award. So she earned it. So when I realized that it was going to be her, I was so excited. And I had this visual in my mind of calling her into my office and saying to her, you are valedictorian. I thought you'd jump up and down and all of this. So I planned this really well. I get her mentor, bring her into my office. We're going to surprise Michaela, right? And remember, I've got this vision. So here she comes, like what? She comes tootling in because she's at that place now where she's exuding more confidence. And I said, Michaela, I'm so excited to tell you, you are this year's valedictorian. No jumping. Here's what she did. Totally froze. Her face got red. Her hands went to her cheeks, and crocodile tears came through. And my natural inclination, I was like, Michaela, what? And she said, I didn't know I was smart. I didn't know I was smart. And Carolee and I, at the same time, went, we did. And she goes, I know. And then we did the jumping up and down thing. It was so great. But we got to believe in our kids. We got to find something to believe in, even if it's something that drives us crazy. right? That kid that's always in your face. Man, you are persistent. You have perseverance. I love that. But we got to find a way for you to ask for what you need respectfully, because you're not quite cutting that part. So we're going to work on it. But I love it. We got to believe in our kids. Connection matters. Remember this kid? Cisco? What I didn't tell you, when you read that last line, got expelled from middle school for carrying a substance. Well, that's the end of 8th grade. And Cisco got placed in my alternative ed school for high school, right? This spoken word piece, the beginning that I read you, is his graduation speech. He called it a blessing in disguise. And I'm going to let you hear the rest of this piece that I read to you. And we might have to turn up the volume on this one, okay? All right. You guys ready? I want you to notice and listen for what he thought was important.
I realized at the time, to my surprise, Aspire welcomed me in. The first day I arrived, I was told we all deserve a second chance. Something I've never received. It really opened up my eyes. Walking through the building, I didn't feel criticized, but I still doubted myself. I thought I was forever lost until Miss Hippel's path crossed mine. She was the first teacher to let me hope. She wasn't gonna let me fall behind. For the first time, I felt motivation, but Aspire did more than just give me an education. It helped break down the walls I set. I never had a teacher who wanted to start a conversation before. They set me straight when my expectations weren't met, because I had aspirations and they never let me forget. Thank you, Aspire, I can't state it more simple. Thank you for introducing me to the incredible Miss Hippel. Even the new Miss Nagle who grew on me fast, I'm a miss sitting in your classroom sharing our past. One of the simplest things that made me feel not so lonely. Ranting about TV shows and music with Mrs. Rhodey. Mr. Harold, whose philosophies changed my way of thought. To Kara Lee, thank you for all the passion and love you brought. Mr. Nair, with crazy stories that always added insight. And Mr. and Mr. M, I guess you're all right, Miss Jen, thank you for feeding me. We came a long way. Thank you, Renee, for treating my headaches day to day. Miss T, thank you for everything. Thank you with everything I have for opening the door of opportunity to me. On to the next chapter of my life, but should all be part of my story. So let me finish this by saying, school wasn't for me, but I still finished. I wasn't going to diminish all those years that I pushed my limits just to quit. My mom brought me to this world, so I'ma honor it. Thank you.
What did you notice? He had great instruction. He really did. We had to continue increasing rigor at our school because we were a new school. And we did that to the point that it was really difficult for our kids who were making up credits and trying to achieve. But did he talk about that? Talked about relationships, being connected, to feel not so lonely, right? Another way of being, we got to be restorative. I had a wonderful talk this morning with Stephanie Keating. Okay? Go Washoe County School District. And I went in and changed the slide as I was talking to her. Because over here in the purple, here was my thing. Pat and I had a great talk about this last night. And my thing is, when we talk about restorative practices, we're always talking about dealing with a kid in conflict, right? An aggressor, or the receiver of that aggression. But really, being restorative, it is a way of being. And she said, here's how we say it. We don't do restorative, we are restorative. And I love that, Stephanie, so thank you for that. When we be restorative, it's high support and high accountability, right? They go hand in hand, just like with that toddler. We need to encourage, but that doesn't mean they don't need to be held accountable. And you know the best part of this? When we provide that support, you'll see them start holding themselves accountable. So being restorative, it de-escalates and encourages ownership, investment, and healing. When we teach them to be restorative themselves by asking the right questions, they begin to do that themselves and think about what they do and why they do it. I mean, those of you that are teachers in this room or administrators, you know, in regard to instructional practices, what are we looking for? Metacognition, right? How we think about learning? Well, what about if we get them to think about how they think about their behaviors? And it comes down to the questions we asked. There is nothing better than asking a kid or saying to a kid, can you tell me more? Tell me more about, even if you say, tell me more about why you did what you did, you're still letting the kid know, I'm interested in your side of the story. That wall isn't going to go back up or go up immediately. We need to ask questions like, what happened? Who's been affected? And let's expand it out. And also, what are we going to do to make this right? Or what do you need for this to feel right? Being restorative. It's what we are. And finally, empathy. We have to be empathetic with our kids. We need to try to see through their eyes, to be with them. Not feel sorry for them. They don't need that, nor do they want it. And not fix them, but be there. I can't tell you how many times I've said to a kid, you know what? I don't understand. I've never experienced that, but I'm here with you. You want to talk about it? Let's talk. I'll listen. Be with them, right? But to be truly empathetic, and if you have never watched Brené Brown videos on empathy, you got to do it. I had to cut it out of this presentation, but she's amazing. Okay, so write that down. Just put her name and empathy in YouTube. But she says this, to truly be empathetic, we need to hold space for our own personal boundaries. Because if we get so sucked in, then we can't be that support that we need to be for our kids. And we can't be that support that we need to be at home. We got to take care of ourselves too. And there are so many teachers that feel overwhelmed, and administrators, counselors, social workers, they're like, I can't do it all. I got too much on my plate, which is why this way of being, it doesn't add more. It's who you are. Okay? So hold space for personal boundaries. Here's the other thing. When we are empathetic, when we try to see through their eyes, we've got to remember to be culturally humble. We hear a lot about cultural competence. And it's great to strive for cultural competence, but it's always something we are striving for because of our own implicit or unconscious biases. We're never going to be completely competent. So we have to acknowledge cultural humility. It is okay to say, I don't know or I don't understand. Help me to better understand. Cultural humility seeks to understand. We can't forget that. And then we also need to remember that our language makes a difference. I don't know if you have noticed my language as I've talked to you today, but I've used words like we, our, I, but not you. You need to do this. You say you, a kid puts up a wall. They're already turning it off. They're already acting tough or like they don't care. And it's going to be hard to reach them academically when they're in that place, right? So we got to be empathetic. When we be connected and be restorative and be empathetic, we set our school climate up to be positive. And here's the research. I won't go into it all, but a positive school climate does these things and more, but these are the things that I think are important. It creates a safe, respectful, and inclusive school culture. It nurtures a positive space for evidence-based programs or promising practices to be more effective. We know they're effective, but why not shoot for more? And finally, it connects staff to staff, students to students, and staff to students, not to mention other stakeholders within your school community. We cannot forget our families. We need to be this way with them as well, right? So with that, I want you to remember, we got to start with the heart. And in fact, I don't think I have time for this activity. I'm coming to the end. So, and I know you guys are exhausted. Okay, do not let me fall off this table, okay? Yeah, do you remember this one? Remember, it was like this. We got spirit. Yes, we do. We got spirit. How about you? And you threw it over, right? Now, I have I there, and so I know I've broken some of Nancy's rules about reading together, because I'm going to have my table here say we with me. Okay, I'm changing the I to we. So you all are competing with us. Okay, we're sending it out there to you. Okay, are you guys ready?
Ready?
You better be ready. Okay, on 3. 1, 2, 3. We've got heart. Yes, we do. We've got heart. How about you? We've got heart. Yes, we do. We've got heart. How about you? Okay, I'm sorry, but if you've ever been at a football game, there is a lot more conviction than that. So, this row over, we're doing the we part first. Oh, Ashley, I'm sorry. Thank you, Jess. Okay, stand up. This row over, we're doing it first. The rest of you are doing it second. Are you ready on 3? 1, 2, 3. We've got heart. Yes, we do. We've got heart. How about you?
We've got heart. Yes, we do. We've got heart. How about you?
Woo! I like that. Start with the heart. What a guy. It begins with you. Start with the heart. It's tried and true. You want to know more about starting with the heart? Please check out my book in March. It comes out by Corwin in March. But I want to close with this. Tony Dungy, one of my most favorite human beings, another person you need to read if you haven't done so. He says this: it's about the journey, mine and yours, and the lives we can touch, the legacy we can leave, and the world we can change for the better. You guys are out there doing it. I thank you very much. I appreciate you. Have a great night.